Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about mass migration, and given that the largest proportion of the mass migrants coming to Australia are Indian migrants, then that would naturally draw the attention, I suppose, of any commentator. Now, in a business I have a share in, we recently were invited to move to the next stage of doing a large proposal for a major engineering, civil engineering type project in Australia. And so we went along and were surprised that I suppose we shouldn't have been really, but the sort of the main committee and all the employees in this particular government department were Indians. None of them had English as a first language. They still had that very thick Indian accent. And so they were recent arrivals. They didn't have an Australianized version, if you like, of the Indian accent. So what we, again, as I've said a number of times in other videos, we've got a situation where these unneeded, unwanted Indian immigrants that have got no needed skills or anything at all are being brought over en masse by the fucking gazillion and being brought into Australia, but they can't get jobs and they can't find employment on their own, just using their own abilities and skills. They either don't have the qualifications they claim to have, like they've got some corrupt bullshit degree that they were given because of their social status in India, or they've never had a job, or the only job they've ever had is the family-owned monopoly business where they just pretend, they swan around looking and sounding important and prestigious, but actually don't do any work. So that's the sort of people that are being brought out here to Australia and being given visas and in vast numbers. So this entire government department, all funded by white taxpayer money, has got nothing but Indians. There are a few others. I'm not sure they're Indian necessarily, but we didn't directly interact with them. But they came, I think, from the subcontinent, best I could tell. So now these Indians, again, they come from the upper castes in India, so they already perceive themselves as demigods. They already perceive that they're still suffering the slights of when the British came to India and displaced the Brahmins in the demigod sort of upper stratum of society. And of course, even today in India, this idea of equality before the law and equality of opportunity, all these sorts of things, things that the Brahmins and the upper caste just don't agree with. No, the people at the bottom are at the bottom for a reason, because they're shit. So we don't have to be on an equal level with them, whether it's before the law or before anything else. And so they come to Australia with very much those caste ideas in mind, and that that's what they've grown up with. That's their perception. And I've dealt with Brahmins who purport to have quadruple PhDs and this, that, and the next thing, and they say quite openly, look, you have no right to question me unless you are of a superior social caste. You cannot question me. You cannot hold me accountable. You cannot demand or require me. You cannot give me directives. You cannot tell me what to do because I'm of a superior social status. So by merely asking me or telling me or requiring me to do work, you're behaving in a manner of unspeakable insolence, which I will, as the Brahmin, not tolerate. So So anyway, these people come to Australia and with an approximation of those views, and they're gifted affirmative action jobs that they could not get in a competitive working environment. And remember, Indians had a lot of trouble getting jobs in Australia, a lot of trouble, until affirmative action was instituted. And before affirmative action, they could get jobs, but they wouldn't last very long at all. The fact they had fake degrees or they couldn't do any of the things they claimed they could do, that was found out pretty quickly. And they were sort of, I remember the Indians, the early Indians were quite bewildered. Why do you expect me to do work? Why do you expect me to be accountable? I'm a fucking upper caste society person. It's an outrage that you expect this of me, you motherfucker. And so it's very, very much that going on. And so it's only when affirmative action came in that the Indians, and particularly in the government and public services, that's where they just opened up the spigot, the taxpayer money spigot, and said, okay, let's employ all these Indians let's just create, jobs, paper shuffling jobs or bullshit nothing jobs, which is what the Indians are used to, the upper caste Indians are used to in India. They've got these pretend jobs where they're very important. They're there for a matter of social prestige. So they don't see it as affirmative action when they get to Australia. They see that they've been gifted these jobs because they are upper social caste, because they are, socially prestigious sort of people, because they are morally and spiritually superior to, and they actually, seriously, they actually believe they've got the jobs on some sort of a miasma of socially prestigious merit. Australians can't do these jobs because they're too low working class. Because the idea of a lot of these Indians, if you work for a living, then that automatically qualifies you as lower class. You are automatically lower class if you have to work or do something productive. You swan around looking important in a sharp suit and making proclamations and so on. But the idea that you're accountable and these sort of things, that's for the birds. That's for the hoi polloi, for the plebs. And so they actually believe or convince themselves in a way that the reason they're getting these jobs is because there's no Australians who can do it. We're socially prestigious and we're giving these jobs. So when you go to the meetings, and this is with an entire department of Indian upper class, socialites in effect, they perceive that we're the people doing the work. Therefore, we are the hoi polloi. We are the plebs. They are the upper class. They are the gods handing down God's word to the plebeian workers. And we, representing the people who are going to do the work, we are the plebeians. They are the gods. So that divide is there, and and it's irritating to be spoken down to by people who've arrived only recently and have these thick accents, only hang around in Indian communities, who decide that, hey, we're in charge now, and we're going to tell you guys how it is. And so, and now we've been through a million of these sorts of things, not just with Indians, but generally. And there are certain, niceties or certain registration type procedures and hoops you have to jump through that there are formalities you don't really bother with it because you know that somebody comes from a certain, has that capability or has done work for you previously, had that expertise. But to the Indians, you have to bow down before them and you have to appreciate their greatness and their power. So they will make you jump through every micro fucking hoop they can and get off on the idea. And while you're doing this, you must show appropriate respect and subservience to their greatness. It is irritating beyond belief, only because it's unnecessary and only because we're or any other contractor is being required to do it purely on the basis of them, getting off on the power of it all and putting those white boys in their place. The British may have been in charge during the days of the Raj, but hey, white boy, we're in charge now. Suck on it, motherfucker. And again, very irritating. I wonder if I'm sort of, maybe you should just let these things just wash over you and say, well, that's the reality. The globalists have imposed this on us. That's the reality. Just let it wash over you and just try and ignore it. But it's not as simple as that. You're being made to jump through unnecessary hoops and incur that cost, by the way. And to them, the ritualistic procedure is the issue, not that anything's being achieved or matters are being progressed, anything's being done, or that important information is being gathered and filed. It's not that. It's the ritualistic nature of the procedure. And the Indians, if they'll do anything, they can look at any bureaucratic procedure and turn it into a ritualistic procedure consistent with their beliefs of the universe and their social beliefs of the universe and so on. But I'm finding this more and more. And there are now large private, but supposedly or purportedly private organisations that rely almost exclusively on government contracts. They've succumbed to this, and entire departments within, again, allegedly private companies, they're now wall-to-wall Indians, and the Indians on from that company do business with the Indians in the government. Maybe it's a total Indian affair. But on the flip side of this, say, okay, well, maybe that is the case, but maybe they're very impressive people. Maybe they're just really bright people who really know their shit and can really go. But that's not even the case. It's manifest. They've come from a completely alien culture, and they're attempting to impose their cultural norms on us here in Australia, but in the most unproductive manner possible. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. And you've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.